I don't want to do this. Where will DeAndre Hopkins land next?
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. This is not one that I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to talking to you. I'm looking forward to, discussing the Arizona Cardinals and free agency and trade prospects and things like that. But I'm not excited to talk about DeAndre Hopkins not being on the Arizona Cardinals. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. So there's a couple things on the docket today. And free agency is in full effect. As I'm recording this, the Arizona Cardinals have not made any more moves. I reserve the right to not look like a dummy pants if something happens and it's not a part of this podcast, because as I am recording now, the Cardinals have not made any more moves, including trading DeAndre Hopkins. So DeAndre Hopkins, it's been a polarizing situation. And when it comes to a guy like him, an elite wide receiver, still to this day, an elite wide receiver, coupled with my biggest nightmare going into the 2022 season, aside from, anybody getting injured, because, that's always the case, but Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins not playing meaningful snaps together. And that's exactly what we saw. It was too perfect to not be foreshadowing for what the next steps were going to be with this organization. DeAndre Hopkins, in my opinion, is still well worth a first-round pick. And I don't understand why that's in a minority thought. I don't understand why more people don't think that. It doesn't make all he's done is been elite forever. And yeah, he got popped for PEDs. I still stand behind DeAndre Hopkins that he didn't know what he was taking. When he came back, he wasn't like Patrick Peterson who came back and looked broken. When he came back, he looked like DeAndre Hopkins. And then towards the tail end with the injuries and things like that, it's like when a team is just spiraling out of control, sure, there are players that won't play specific games with specific injuries, but those injuries may be injuries that wouldn't keep those specific players off the field if the team was in contention for a division or, division crown or a playoff spot, neither of which the Cardinals were last year. So it begs the question, with other receivers signing, Jacoby Myers, Juju Smith-Schuster, both signed 3-year deals around $30 million. Where is DeAndre Hopkins going to land? Could it be the Giants? It seems like the Patriots are going to be out, but the Giants are an interesting team. The Chiefs are always interesting, especially if it's going to cost them a late second-round pick, because it doesn't look like DeAndre Hopkins is going to get a first-round pick and traded back for him. And this is one of the first, all right, Monty, baby, let's see what you got. If they can somehow coax a high second-round pick, which would most likely be to a team that's not a contender, or a late first-round pick, which would be from a team who is a contender, that would be the Shangri-La Xanadu home run heavenly scenario here for the Cardinals. DeAndre Hopkins is the same age as Davante Adams, I believe. Davante Adams is looked at as to be the greatest thing ever, and DeAndre Hopkins is looked at not being a top 5 receiver anymore. Maybe he's not a top 5 receiver anymore. Maybe he's a top 8 receiver. Maybe he's a top 10 receiver. Do you know how many wide receiver ones there are in the NFL? 8, 10, bona fide, no doubt about it, wide receiver ones, not many. And what DeAndre Hopkins is going to do is wherever he goes, if there's competent quarterback play, he's going to put up about 1,000 yards. He's going to put up between 7 and 10 touchdowns, and everybody's going to look at it like, wow, team name got a steal by giving just that for DeAndre Hopkins, whatever it is, if it's not a first-round pick. Is it going to be a first-round pick? No. Should it be? Yeah. Will it be? No. It doesn't, like, the market's such an interesting thing. It's such a fascinating thing. Comparing Julio Jones, who was a couple years older when he got traded, and the package that Tennessee gave Atlanta was a joke. DeAndre Hopkins is still so far more relevant now than Julio Jones was when he got traded. Julio Jones has been an injury concern his entire career. It's always a hamstring. It's always a leg. It's always something. Always questionable. Always questionable. Always questionable. DeAndre Hopkins just played. And sure, got injured at the end of 2021. PED suspension in 2022. Okay, so I see where the tea leaves may be leaning towards falling. But that by no means means that DeAndre Hopkins is done, that he's close to washed. DeAndre Hopkins, mark my words, and this is so obvious to me, he is going to thrive for another 2 seasons somewhere else. And the main reason why, he's never relied on his speed to be elite, ever. So when speed leaves elite wide receivers, that's when their value weakens when it comes to, being a player on football field, not humanly, but being a player, putting up, the production numbers. DeAndre Hopkins, and I think Steve Smith is like one of the main exceptions to that rule. Steve Smith played till he was 36 or 37, re-energized his career in Baltimore, and just he was a fantasy darling for 2 years, and he wasn't as fast as he used to be. Not everybody's Deshaun Jackson, who is just fast. Deshaun Jackson isn't human. I don't think he's human. I don't think he or Von Miller are human. They're fine wine, baby. Deshaun Jackson is as fast now, it seems, as he was when he was 25. It's wild. But DeAndre Hopkins, he's always relied on not needing space to be effective. Catches everything. His catch radius is absolutely insane, whether it be just contested one-on-one, double coverage, tip balls. Just watch some of DeAndre Hopkins' highlight reels. It's flipping stupid. It's just it's wild. It's absolutely wild. Now, what does this mean for the Cardinals? There is going to be a huge void in the wide receiver room. Massive. While I call them the Teslas, Hollywood Brown, Greg Dortch, and Rondale Moore are excellent when healthy in their own right. They probably are, and this isn't being too close to it, they're probably the fastest trio in football on the same field from the wide receiver group. They are. They're insanely fast. But with DeAndre Hopkins eventually getting traded, which it seems like is formality, with the 3 players who have left from 3 different positions, corner, Byron Murphy, interior defensive line, or just, hand in the dirt defender, Zach Allen, and DeAndre Hopkins, leaves just massive gaps on the line, cornerback room, and wide receiver room. So while this is the rebuild, this is the hitting rock bottom, watching it happen, it's kind of a gut punch. Knowing that it's going to be better and these are things that need to happen in an effort for it to do so, it's just a gut punch. And the DeAndre Hopkins one is going to be the biggest one. Even though he's far older than the other 2 guys, it's just tough. And with all of those voids, there are 2 ways that Monty Osborne and Michael Bidwell can take this roster in 2023. And one of the ways is directly correlated to 2024. We'll hit that more in depth. Locked On Cardinals. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, baby, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. So just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from money line to point scores and threes drained. And also, FanDuel has these things called same-game parlays. You make a bunch of different bets. One bet, you can win a massive payout. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more at FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Yeah, the DeAndre Hopkins thing is just a gut punch for me. Just a gut punch. He was my favorite wide receiver to watch before the Cardinals traded for him. Like, oh man, you had to watch DeAndre Hopkins live with Kyler Murray, and it started really great. I mean, week 1 was the game in San Francisco. It was awesome. And then it's just kind of like it's just, you know, it's kind of like a where do the Cardinals go from here thing. It really Byron Murphy, okay, we'll see what his future holds. Zach Allen, same thing. It seems like he has a shorter trajectory to being very impactful and great. But DeAndre Hopkins, is great. DeAndre Hopkins, is going to make an immediate impact elsewhere. Probably in a situation where it's more equipped for that team to win. So it's kind of a scenario where it's like getting broken up with, and that wherever your ex now lands is going to be a better situation. And that just hurts more. Because it's like, looking back in the last couple of years, like, oh, what could I have done better? What could I have done better to keep the relationship, to make the relationship work? And unfortunately, for all those who are still here, it was out of their control. And yes, injuries had something to do with it and bad luck, but the Cardinals starting 10-2 and then ending the way they did and then going into 2023 the way they did, it's just yuck. And then watching DeAndre Hopkins go somewhere else and thrive, it's just going to hurt. And as I think about it more and more, it's just gut-wrenching. That's the one that hurts. And as you hear me try to formulate my thoughts and I talk slowly, it's just I never thought that this would be the day. Think about it. In 2020, when the Hail Murray, it's like, oh, great, they're making strides. And they start 10-2. It's like DeAndre Hopkins is going to extend and he's going to retire an Arizona Cardinal. And then winning in the NFL is so fleeting. Having a good situation with good players is so fleeting. The championship window for every team is 1 season or 2 seasons. You're seeing it with Philly. There's no way that Philly's going to be the odds-on favorite to come out of the NFC next year. They're losing everybody. Or some people. I mean, not everybody, but they lost some people. And it's just like getting to a Super Bowl is so insanely difficult that when you see potential and then it completely falls short, like with the Cardinals, it's just, as I'll say one last time, a gut punch. So Michael Bidwell and Monty Osborne have a couple different ways to go about this. There's so many holes on the roster. And there are maybe, and this is not me airing low, 2, 3 players on this team, maybe 4, that and trust will produce. Budda Baker against Jalen Thompson, so that's 2. James Conner is 3. Hollywood Brown probably is 4. Zach Ertz, 5. That's not even counting the start. That's everybody. And we'll see with Zayvon Collins. We'll see with Isaiah Simmons. We'll see with Marco Wilson. We'll see. We'll see what happens with DJ Humphries. What do we know? We don't know anything, at all, about what this roster is going to look like. We do know that they're going to need to bring players in, pay them, and have them play football in 2023. So does that mean that the Cardinals are going to try and sign guys on prove-it deals? And when I say prove-it deals, I mean prove-it deals where the Arizona Cardinals can prove to those players that they're changing. They can prove to those players that this is a different organization to work for. They're going to prove to those players that this is the new age 2.0 Arizona Cardinals. And I see in my comments on YouTube, and thank you for this. I love it. I don't remember exactly who it was. I gave a shout out. Just like poo-pooing the Arizona Cardinals 2.0 and that it's never going to change. This isn't the last decade. Sure, ups, downs, BA, Bruce Arians with 10-6 records and then 11-6 2 years ago. That's fine. It's just different outfits. It's different colors in the Crayola circle of life that is the Arizona Cardinals. It's, with this now, with the new regime, this could wildly fail. Absolutely. It could. And I said that, but at least the Cardinals are set up to where they have, and I've said this, and I will continue. You, I'm talking to you, will specifically want to throw up when I use the terminology possibilities because I use it so much. The Cardinals didn't have any possibilities to change and adapt and grow in the last regime. They do now. And that is a huge leap of growth. Huge. Massive. And it's not tangible. And it's not easy to see right now because the Cardinals are in such a, Travis Shamockery of a situation when they're really just slowly starting to rebuild. But it's there. So that's why Arizona Cardinals 2.0 was something I even thought about to really initiate the initiative of the Arizona Cardinals 2.0 because this is something that hasn't been experienced in Arizona for 10 years. Steve Keim's gone. Rejoice. You want him to get better health-wise, obviously. I'm talking about the avatar that was the Arizona Cardinals GM. Rejoice. Michael Bidwell ain't selling the team. Let's move off of that. Okay? Can you promise me that? Let's be more constructive. I can talk in abstracts and platitudes just like anybody else. I ain't talking about Michael Bidwell selling the team because it ain't going to happen. But when you look at the roster now, completely incomplete. I didn't even mean to do that. It's incomplete. And you look at the draft capital the Cardinals have right now. They've got a slew. They've got their fair share. They're probably going to get, hopefully, a second-round pick and a fourth for DeAndre Hopkins. At worst, a third and a fourth. It makes me want to throw up. But say they get a third and a fourth, worst-case scenario. They're going to have a massive amount of draft picks, okay? And if they trade down from 3 to 4, which they most likely will, there's still a chance they could trade down to 4 and draft Will Anderson for the Will Anderson truthers out there. They could trade down to 6 or 7 and draft Jalen Carter, who completely bombed his pro day yesterday. But on film, and I had Dame from Locked On NFL Draft and the Draft Network on a couple of days ago last week, and he said Jalen Carter may be better prospect than Will Anderson. But if the Cardinals trade back and you accumulate more draft capital, it's like, why? What is the value in spending a lot of money on free agents this offseason? And it's not rhetorical, I mean, I'm sure people can make a case. You can make a case for really building out the prove-it deals where the Cardinals are proving to these players that they're changing, that this is going to be a new culture. Kyler Murray is going to come back healthy in 2024 and ready to rock with that draft class of 2023, with their draft class of 2024 that's primed to be good, you would think, because they're not going to have they're probably going to have a high draft pick in every round next year. I feel like punting on 2023, even though it's such a defeatist attitude, and I'm never one to be like, oh, yep, that's the best way to just tank, have Kyler Murray sit. I'd be fighting against myself to say that it's not the correct option. And look at 2024, completely rejuvenated, cultivating these young players who they drafted, cultivating a new culture, building a strong foundation. Jonathan Gannon really substantiating himself as the new leader of this organization. I can't make the case for the Cardinals really trying to go get anything in 2023, aside from trying to build from the ground up a brand new organization that happens to have the same name as the last one. The Arizona Cardinals need to extend Budda Baker, though, this offseason. I'll tell you why next as Locked On Cardinals rolls on. Final segment. Locked On Cardinals. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. Please go like and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you don't already. What are you doing with your life? You can watch my big dumb face get angry. Why is that not worth zero admission and just watching it, commenting? I do want to touch on one thing. I tweeted out that so my tweet was at this point. Okay. I prefaced the tweet and it gave me an out. Okay. It gave me an out. And when you have straightforward thoughts like I do, having an out is a beautiful thing. So my tweet was, at this rate, I tweeted this 2 days ago at night. At this rate, the Arizona Cardinals should sit Kyler Murray for the entire 2023 NFL season, get the first overall pick in the 2024 draft, and accumulate 4 first-round picks from whichever team wants Caleb Williams. First of all, because Twitter will Twitter, some people saw that as the Cardinals should draft Caleb Williams. No, it's not what I meant. It's a completely different topic altogether. It's not even close to what I meant. Just because Kyler Murray and Caleb Williams are in the same tweet doesn't mean say the Cardinals should draft Caleb Williams. At this point, at this rate, meant the Cardinals haven't done jack. So it's like if they're just going to fall on their sword during free agency, sign a couple players here and there, what's the point of bringing Kyler Murray back? Like, say he's not ready to roll in week 10 and they're 2-8 or 2-7. Is there really a point? And I know that he's getting paid a whole lot of money. I know that. And I know that all the Kyler Murray naysayers are going to come out and say, well, he's getting paid $50 million. You should play. This is when you play. You get better, blah, blah, blah. I get it. And that's a rational thought, even though how I just regurgitated that out of my mouth wasn't necessarily the most sharp. But if you get to a situation where week 9 comes in, the Cardinals are 2-6. Week 10 comes in and Kyler Murray's about ready to play and the Cardinals are 2-7. It's like, what's the point? And I know it goes against all karmic energy when it comes to trying to lose never really gets you what you need. And it's not trying to lose. It's putting the Cardinals in the best situation to lose. Is not starting Kyler Murray. And again, like, this is way. I mean, it's Thursday, March 16th. I mean, we're so far away from any sort of, team activities, the draft, even anything. So it's all conjecture, but it's like, could be a worse idea because the first overall pick next year will be Caleb Williams in the 2024 NFL draft. And the first overall pick, if it is a bad team who doesn't need a quarterback, they will get 4 first-round picks for Caleb Williams, 3 first-round picks in 2 seconds. They're going to get maybe the biggest lion's share ever for a first-round pick. Cardinals get the first overall pick, and they get to trade back. That's how you completely change the face of an organization. Just food for thought. The Arizona Cardinals, there's one thing they absolutely need to do, and I'm going to explain why. They need to extend Budda Baker this offseason. They're going to have some cap space. They're not going to spend all of it. They can backload it. He's got 2 years left on his deal. There's a couple different reasons why Budda Baker must be extended this offseason before the 2023 season. He's under contract through 2024. Okay? As we've seen with Patrick Peterson and Chandler Jones, contracts seem to go from, oh, that's a couple years away to, oh my God, it's right now with contracts being up. And Patrick Peterson and Chandler Jones aren't exactly the best examples because they weren't at an elite level when the contract negotiations came into play and, the Cardinals let both of them walk. Budda Baker is the face of this organization. Budda Baker is the closest thing to Larry Fitzgerald the Cardinals have had since Larry Fitzgerald has been gone. And this isn't me comparing Budda Baker to Larry Fitzgerald. Like, Budda Baker's not a top 3 wide receiver of all time. None of that. None of that. But what Budda Baker does for the Arizona Cardinals, he's the metronome. He's the most solid part of the definition that is the Arizona Cardinals. So not only if he wants to stay, and it seems like he died, I don't know, he could have, like, this is a situation where you want to front load his happiness because it's going to get weird for the next 18 months. So I think the extent of, and then with that, from a business sense, you're saving, 50 cents on the dollar for what the contract would be after the 2024 season. Because I'll tell you what, everybody's going to want Budda Baker then. So as a good future, contractually, that'll help the team with that. And number two, you solidify the only pillar on the defensive side of the ball the Arizona Cardinals have. The set and forget. And I think it's a no-brainer for the Cardinals to extend on this offseason. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. I'll talk to you tomorrow.